Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
They are still taping the current season.
They're in production, and Jussie Smollett was at work yesterday after court. He left the courthouse in Chicago, went straight to the studio where the show's taped, and got to work.
We still have not heard publicly yet from Jussie Smollett. I want to hear from him. Let's not just ride this pendulum back and forth and back and forth. There seems to be overwhelming evidence that what Jussie said is not true.
A lot of black men and women and a lot of gay men and women are assaulted and shot and murdered in that city all the time. And how dare you take the onus of something as real as that for something like this?
And we heard this today. Jussie Smollett will not appear in the final 2 episodes of this season of the TV show he stars in or co-stars in, Empire. The show's executive producers just releasing a statement saying, quote, Jussie has been an important member of our Empire family for the past 5 years, and we care about him deeply. While these allegations are very disturbing, we are placing our trust in the legal system as the process plays out. So to prevent further disruption, they go on to say, they have decided to pull the role of Jamal for the rest of the season thus far. CNN national correspondent Ryan Young, he's been following this from the start, the ups and downs. He has the latest. Ryan.
Empire actor Jussie Smollett digging in after being charged with reporting a fake assault to police.
He was dissatisfied with his salary, so he concocted a story about being attacked.
Smollett's legal team insisting he maintains his innocence, writing in a defiant statement, today we witness an organized law enforcement spectacle. The presumption of innocence was trampled upon at the expense of Mr. Smollett. The source tells CNN that Smollett was on the set to film at the Empire studio Thursday afternoon and called a meeting with cast and crew who were said to be expecting him to come clean. But after apologizing for any embarrassment caused by the incident, the source says Smollett asked the show team for their support and again insisted that he's innocent.
Our big question, will he change his story? He says he is innocent. Joining me now is pop culture expert John Murray. And back with us, we're so glad we have him. He didn't go far, legal analyst Joey Jackson. A lot of legalities in this. But first, John, your thoughts on the news conference and also the news that he won't be in the next 2 episodes, the last 2 episodes. Because when I was listening to the Chicago superintendent, wow, some powerful words.
Listen, Susan, initially I felt as though this story had more twists and turns than an episode of Empire, but this has now become Law and Order Chicago edition. And that press conference was one of the most compelling things I have seen in a long time. That superintendent was pissed off. He was mad because he's a Chicago native, and he felt like they had put so much resources and so much time into investigating this story, only for it to lead with their evidence saying that he did this whole thing himself. You know, there are a lot of people who invested their emotions into this thing, and now they feel they've been emotionally raped because, you know, you can't usurp human nature. People gravitated to this story because it checked a lot of boxes. You had celebrity, you had crime, you had mystery, but you had somebody who was the face of 2 marginalized groups saying that what happened to them was reflective of things that happened in the Jim Crow South. And so because of that, people are now outraged. They still want answers. He's standing by his story, but I'm telling you, the evidence against him does not look good.
You make a good point, John. And Joey, when I was listening to the superintendent, Eddie Johnson, he said this: I wish the family of gun violence victims got this much attention, meaning all of the cameras are here because of this. It sounded like he was furious, as John said, and he took it personally.
He really did. Remember what they did is that they really devoted a lot of resources to this. You have 12 detectives who are working the case. You have 1,000 man-hours that are spent to bring justice to these people who attacked him. And then what? There is no attacker or attackers, and there is no justice to bring. If anything, there's justice to bring to the community by virtue of it, the character of the community being besmirched by an alleged false accusation. And whenever detectives go out and they're investigating, they're doing what they have to do, they're subject to peril too. And so as a result of that, you know, you're subjecting his officers to danger. You're diverting resources away from real victims who need those resources to be had. And it's just obviously in the narrative that we are today where, you know, immigrants are being attacked, African Americans are being attacked. You know, it just seems as though we're living in a culture where there's so much hate and so much, you know, vitriol. This was not needed to be injected into the equation. And so to the superintendent's point, I really get it, and I really understand where he was coming from.
John, when you were watching the GMA interview when he was talking to Robin Roberts and really saying what kind of a person would make this up, I do want to point out he still says he didn't do it, it wasn't him. But 2,948 people killed in Chicago, the superintendent said, this year alone. So going on GMA and again saying, I would never do this, that could hurt him, John.
Oh, yes. Listen, every legal analyst, and I'm sure Joey will attest to this, I've seen on television has said that Robin Roberts interview will now be used as evidence against him because he gave a very definitive point of view and very declarative words there. And, you know, that's something that he now cannot walk back. This is what I also feel, Susan. You know, Jussie really compromised his positioning on Empire. We know that they're taking him out of the last 2 episodes of the show. If the evidence that the police have presented is true and that he was doing this so that he could position himself maybe to be like the gay Colin Kaepernick so that he could raise his profile and get a higher salary on the show, that salary might go away altogether because if Fox has to then fire him from the show, there will be no salary.
That's a good point, Joey. That doesn't even make sense to me that would be a motive. No motive would make sense to me, but a financial gain certainly wouldn't be the way to go here. Is he facing jail time, Joey?
You know, I really think he is, and that's predicated upon a judge and a prosecutor really wanting to send a message that this is not really what you need to do. And that's why I'm very concerned about what his defense team does. He'll be represented by the best. Certainly, Mark Garagos is very experienced in these regards. But, you know, it seems as though they're following a path of scorched earth. You know, Chicago PD, racist PD, Department of Justice violations, etc. And I just don't know that dog hunts here where you have so much evidence which establishes his guilt. And the reason I bring that up to your central point, jail time, is because, you know, look, if you're fighting and you're taking the road that this didn't happen and this is against me and it's the media and it's the police, you're going to be held accountable at the end of the day should you be convicted versus having a mea culpa and coming and saying, I'm sorry, I know you all love me, you support me, this was a terrible thing to do, have mercy on me. And I think the court potentially would in that circumstance.
And the superintendent saying, look, for those who do come out in the future, what if people hesitate and don't believe them because of this? And that could happen. John Murray, Joey Jackson, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.